He's Black Guy Fawkes, and I'm about to spend 2 weeks on the road in a car with him. And together we are Fawkes and Friends. Today, the third friend who we're talking to about creativity and social justice is Beans on Toast.
1, 2, 3, 4. From coast to coast, from sea to shining sea, what he got is fucking on his land's not made for you and me. We're chatting built the wall as we tear down bottom stall. Watch our kids get slaughtered as they run straight through the hall. Let's go!
Ian, has it been good having a week to rest after all the wonderful chaos of Lost Evenings and Cowboy Chords?
It has. It was chaotic. It was fun. It was memorable. I got news that we raised $3,508 for Way Out Arts. That was just from Cowboy Chords. That was just from Open Mic. On top of that, I just got word that we also raised $76,000 for the Ally Coalition.
Holy hell,
That
man.
Full weekend, which, holy shit. So thank you everybody who donated. Thank you everybody who came out for a lost season. Thank you everybody who just participated and just made it what it was and made a fucking difference. It's absolutely insane. And now we got this week off, and then you and we get back to it next week.
We do. I pick you and our friends, the Peanuts, up in Chicago, which is going to be fun because you guys arrive an hour apart at two different airports. It's going to be an adventure.
It's going to be an adventure, but it's going to be fun. Just house shows throughout the Midwest and Northeast. And then right after that, I come back and I get to play a show with Jeshua, Marshal, and our guest for today, Mr. Beans on Toast. And we'll be at the Camel on October 13th in Richmond, Virginia. This interview was a lot of fun. My first time seeing Beans was Ramsey Live, which I found out was closing, rest in peace. And this is just a lot of fun. Beans has always been somebody who I look up to when it comes to like DIY and just being, just being one man, one guitar. And I feel like we had a lot of fun during this interview, so let's get into it. Beans on Toast, welcome to Fawkes and Friends. How are you today, my friend? Good to have you on.
I'm doing very well, and thank you very much for having me on. Digitally, nice to be here.
My first time meeting you, I think it was in Anaheim last year for Lost Evenings, but my first time seeing you was like, I think in 2013 at Ramshead Live in Baltimore.
Okay.
I remember just seeing you just write Beans on Toast on white t-shirts that you got from Target, like, I guess, like the day of.
Yeah, exactly. I did that for that whole tour, actually. I did, I couldn't afford to get t-shirts printed, or I didn't have the means of taking any merch on that tour. So it was just to kind of make it work as you go along. Luckily, the kind of Beans on Toast t-shirts, even when I do get them printed, they're just my handwriting anyway. So it's pretty easy to carry that on. But I remember that gig at the Ramshead in Baltimore. It was great. And I'm a big fan of the American Visionary Art Museum in Baltimore. I visited there for the first time after that gig. We had a day off and I went there, and it's my favorite museum in the world. I think that place. I love it. I've only been there twice, but I hold it in very high esteem.
What's so great about it? I've never been there.
I think it caught me off guard is what I liked. I was literally just walking past, and it was like, I think at the time it was like above the door, it had a Harley Davidson covered in broken mirrors, and you step through. They have a kind of like that. As the first time they had a room dedicated to failed cults. So it was like all these like mad cults from the 70s and these sort of like big backstories, and the artwork that they'd created, that they'd rescued either before these people had kind of blown themselves up or went to jail or, got taken off to alien planets or whatever they did. And then there was like the bra ball, which was, how you make like elastic band balls, like someone had done like a giant one out of bras. And it was presented like it was the Mona Lisa. It had its own room, 2 spotlights on it. It was like very serious art piece of all these bras. And there was some deeper meaning to it behind, which escapes me at the moment, but visually it was impeccable. And they have a kind of outside bit with loads of wacky floats. I guess is there a big carnival in Baltimore?
No, as far as I know, I don't think so. Like we have like some events, but we never had like a carnival there. As far as I
Maybe
know.
they steal them. Maybe they go down to New Orleans or something and like pinch the wacky floats and bring them back. But yeah, it was incredible.
Yeah, that show I remember as soon as he played Harry the Helicopter, I was just hooked from the fucking jump. But
Yeah.
I'm curious though, what is your musical upbringing like? How'd you get into the music scene?
I grew up in a place called Essex, which is sort of northeast of London. I often, when speaking to Americans, compare it to New Jersey because there's draws many comparisons. Essex, where they have Bruce Springsteen, we have Billy Bragg. It's kind of where a lot of the sort of workers of London come from. They're big car manufacturers, and there's a whole bunch. And in fact, Jersey Shore was based on a UK TV show called The Only Way Is Essex. So even that horrid reality TV show aspect of New Jersey is mirrored in Essex. So I grew up there. Both my parents were like diehard music fans, basically. That's probably the easiest way of explaining it. My mum was obsessed with the Beatles. She grew up in the 60s and, was there for Beatlemania in London. My old man loved American music, mainly like John Prine. I mean, this was the 80s as well. So we listened to a lot of like Randy Travis and kind of really cheesy 80s country. And yeah, no, just from, I think the first song I wrote was probably a gangster rap song because that was what I was listening to at the time. Which is hilarious to think, when I was like 13, 14 years old, the biggest cultural influences on a young kid growing up in Essex were gangster rap from like Compton and Australian sitcoms. And that was like the main sort, not just for me, for everyone in my class. We all listened to gangster rap and we all watched Australian TV shows like Neighbours and Home and Away, which is mad. I don't know whether that was how things like that sort of align, but that was the culture. So yeah, I wrote a couple of gangster rap tunes about having AK-47s and all this stuff that bared absolutely no relation to my life. I was like a skinny white virgin singing songs about guns and pimps and hustling and all this shit, just imitating what my favorite songs. And then I guess I think by writing it down, that maybe sort of had not a crisis of confidence, but I sort of realized that this music doesn't necessarily relate to me, certainly when I sing it. So, and at a similar time, I basically got into UK bands like Placebo and bands like Seafood and Cable, which were a lot more kind of like indie rock, I guess. And then that I started like a grunge band, basically. Before I could play guitar, I was like, it seemed like the obvious thing to do as a teenager. We was just like, let's just start a band and we just graffitied the band name all over the school and told everyone we was in a band long before we got any instruments or learned how to play them. And everybody believed us. And then we sort of followed through. And then the minute that I wrote a song, once we got a guitar, I learned 3 chords, wrote one song and have never stopped songwriting since. I was 16 then. The first song was called This Is the Fish. And it had just words just thrown together to try and sound cool that didn't mean anything. But I still remember it to this day. This is the fish. So yeah, since that, I sort of got a real feel for songwriting, basically. And then the band fell apart. I kept on writing, got into kind of the other side of music around that time. In my 20s, I used to promote club nights and book shows. I sort of managed bands. At the same time, I started doing Beans on Toast. So I sort of like, and I liked everything. I still do. I love all aspects of music, not just the making of it, the kind of, like the atmosphere it creates and the life that it kind of, that it leads to, basically. So I tapped straight into that as soon as I was out of school, whether I was making music or not. And then the Beans on Toast thing kind of evolved quite slowly because I was in a position where I was making money from things that I loved. So, which I always think is really important because it took me so long to, now I can survive, I can pay my mortgage and, sort of like raise a family off the back of my songwriting and my touring. But, like, I only got that because I was in this very unique position of having a job which would pay my way, that understood. Basically, I was still self-employed, but there was enough. I could go out on tour. I could say yes to every tour. Like that tour that you saw me on, I probably would have lost money on that tour, but I was booking bands for a venue in Camden at the time to pay my way. But I could just bugger off and do it. And as long as the venue was full, nobody would say anything about it. So it was a good breeding ground to create a sort of underground music, the sort of music that I do make now, because for 5-6 years, I'd play any gig, even if I lost money on it, just because I loved it and I was able to. And from that, it sort of grew into something that, which is why on the flip side of that is why a lot of, like people with money will potentially do better in music. And I don't think you should hold, and no one's to blame for that. But if you take away the sort of like, I think a lot of people, if they're just given the opportunity and say, well, take as long as you need, say yes to every gig, money is no object, then people are going to be able to, they'll break through and get to a point where they'll be able to get paid for it. Like, it'll take a while, but I think a lot of people will get there.
Now, if I'm recalling correctly from your books, the festival culture over there in the UK was also a big influence, and you just got done with your Foolhardy Folk Festival. Can you tell us a little bit about what that culture is like over there? Because I know it's a little different than it is here, with everything being so far apart from each other. It seems like the musicians that we follow and talk to over there, I mean, so many gigs throughout the summer. There's so many festivals. What's navigating all of that like?
Well, it's great. I mean, yeah, I played my last festival weekend just gone, and that was I didn't do an exact count, but let's say 30 festivals this summer. So that's, for over the course of 3-4 months, that's like 2 or 3 festivals a weekend, which, is a lot more than I have done in the past. The past 3 or 4 years have probably been my busiest. But what festival culture in the UK is, it's hugely important. Certainly when I started doing this, Glasgow is like the mecca of, of festivals, basically. And a lot of the festivals now that you see around the UK are kind of children of Glastonbury. But having that there when I was growing up, there was like Reading and Leeds, and there was obviously festivals, but they were a lot more underground, I guess, when I was a teenager. But Glastonbury, I went there when I was 16, and it just, everything about festivals then and still does make a lot of sense to me. They're very, it's like, it's kind of lawless and freedom, whether it's just for a weekend or, forever. It's still something that I can really tap into. People are willing to just sort of like, just let everything go. And all of a sudden the pretense, the most important things are music and, ceremony and community. And people just really, really tap into it. And there's, a lot of people will tell you how that it's very difficult for UK festivals at the moment, but at the same time, they're as important and as busy as ever, and I see, I go to one festival and it's loads of 16-year-olds getting hammered with bucket hats, all like dancing to kind of like, like DJs playing some sort of banging tunes. And then you go around the corner the next day and it's a bunch of really old people sat in chairs listening to folk music, but there's still, and then you can go around the corner, it'll be a punk festival where it's just probably even older people than the folk festivals sometimes, kind of like jigging away with their leather jackets on. And there's these, they're an important part of English life, and it's where people, but I perhaps think too highly of them at times. But for me, I think it's where people, they find their culture, they meet their loved ones, they they see their friends, and, I don't know what people would do without them.
I can agree with that. I feel like I met a lot of good friends of mine at festivals. So like here we have Camp Pennsylvania. I think that's where I first met like Glenn from Back Up, like with people as well. That's how we connected. And Los Angeles last year, that's how I got connected with like more with Ed, more so than anything, alongside like a good amount of people I met there too. So, and like there's some festivals like I have in my town. One's called Dell Fest, and it's like an all bluegrass festival. And while I'm not
Nice.
big into bluegrass, I enjoy the like community aspect of it, where I get to meet different people, get to have like a big community atmosphere where we get to hang out, dance a little bit, just drink a little bit too. So I'm with it.
Yeah, exactly. Community comes together best with drinking and dancing, I find. But yeah, and also, and from the musician standpoint, it's a great, for me, every year from these festivals, I'm always playing to a whole bunch of new people, like, and that's kind of the mission, isn't it? You want to play to as many people as, as humanly possible. And festivals are a great place to do that.
I do want to backtrack real quick though, because I want to ask this before Ed asks a question. But what gangster rap did you listen to? Now I'm curious.
Wu Tang were probably my favorite, but also, I mean, Snoop Dogg, Doggy Style. I quite like the even Ice-T, that Home Invasion. I love that. If you're offended by words like shit, fuck, dick, suck my, all that. It's like, it was just so obnoxious for a 12-year-old as well. I remember like my old man just like turning, he was open to whatever I wanted to listen to and he could put up with it. But I think one Snoop Dogg song, and it was just like, I can't even remember which one, but he just like hit eject. But it wasn't even an act of rebellion, like Wu Tang, especially, like it was, I think because it was groundbreaking music, wasn't it? And perhaps that's why you felt the ripples of it so far away. But yeah, who would be my absolute go-to? I mean, because there was some UK sort of rap at the time that was sort of like, probably should get a shout out. Credit to the Nation, were really good. But yeah, I think Wu-Tang, if I had to sort of, someone that really sort of blew my chops off, would have been that first Wu-Tang album. 36 Chambers is what it's called.
Do you have a favorite member of Wu-Tang?
Favorite member? I mean, I didn't really, because there was, all I had was the CD. So I didn't really know, didn't really know how to, I didn't know who was who, basically. But no, so I don't have a favorite member, and I've seen them a few times, but the different ones turn up, so I still don't really know who was doing what part, because there was nothing visual when I was listening to that record. It was literally just like, just the CD. Didn't know what anybody looked like or anything like that.
Now, I do want to talk about a little about the community aspect that we just spoke about, because I knew you were booking for Nambuca for a while. So outside performing there, what was it like working at Nambuca, like during that whole era?
Well, I mean, like, we set up Nambuca, man. I mean, Nambuca, me and Dave Danger, we was running like club nights, which again, that basically came from, so Dave was the drummer in the band from school. And we moved to London with this big, like, we're going to move in as the band. And that was the plan to, for the band to become the biggest band in the world or whatever. And then the bass player sort of dropped out, and me and Dave had the energy, and we'd been sort of, with the energy that what we'd been doing is trying to get people to come to our gigs. And then it was just like, and it's just answered an advert in, like for some cash in hand work. And it happened to be flyering for an indie club. So I started flyering every night of the week, and it was like perfect gig for me. You'd go and flyer outside other concerts, which I could always get into. I'd just give everyone a flyer and say, give me a free ticket, give me a free ticket, give me a free ticket. And I got a free tickets to Flaming Lip, Bob Dylan, like some of the most amazing gigs. And, if you stood in the rain, just young, enthusiastic, and you ask everyone, someone's got a spare ticket, or I made friends with the touts and all this. There was always a way in. So we did that. And then I was basically and then after flying gigs, you also fly club nights. So in a lot of these music venues, like the Garage and the Monarch in Camden, which used to be in a different building. But so I was flyering for them. And then I just worked out the business of how it worked, because I used to finish flyering and just go inside and fucking dance all night, and like chat up the girls and like just have a great time. So the people that was like running it, it was just an easy gig from what I saw. I was like, let's fucking do our own. So we just hired out the venue. I used to fly for the Friday night, and I just said, we just took it on a Saturday and just did our own. Me and Dave did our own night. That was a night called Static at the Garage. That then turned into a night called Frog, which was hugely successful in central London, 1,000 capacity. We had DJs and like one live band, and we had, the Maccabees, Jamie T, Florence Welch, a whole heap of people, pretty much every indie band coming up at the time played at Frog. And then, so while that was running, at the same time, we used to live in Archway, and me and Dave just went into this pub, Nambuca, and it was empty, and we sat there drinking all day on a Sunday, and not one person walked through the door. And it was this huge pub. So we just sort of said to the guy that was managing it, like, why is there no one here? Do you want us to bring some people into your pub? And we struck a deal where he's like, we'll bring people here next Sunday if we drink for free. And the guy was like, okay, fair dues. And we basically just, we had this network. So we just told everyone from Frog. And this was back in the day. We never used to sleep. Like, we'd just go out from Frog and just come back, and everyone would just do an all-nighter, and we'd all come into Nambuca. And the guy that first day, he said he did more money on that Sunday than he'd done in like a month. So we were just given the keys to the castle. He was just like, you lot can do whatever you want. And we did. And then about 2 months later, he bailed. The guy who was managing it was just like, I don't know how to control this train. But the guy that owns the pub had this time stepped in, realized it was us bringing the people in. And he just said, just keep doing what you're doing. And then we found out there was rooms upstairs. We moved in upstairs. So we already had this network of bands playing the bigger club. And we just, we ran it. We give a fuck. We cared about music. We wanted the pub to be busy, but we didn't have business in mind. Our mission was to have a bloody good time, with as much good music and as many good people as possible. We broke every law in the licensing book, from fucking serving up gear to staying open all night. God knows how we got away with it. We'd just have parties upstairs that last for days, and no one ever. There's actually a weird thing, I think, with Nambuca, where it sat in between 2 London councils. Like, it was actually an Islington council, but if you stepped off the curb, you was in Haringey Council. And Islington would put up Christmas decorations to like about 100 meters away to your left, and Haringey would put them up 100 meters to your right. And no one would put Christmas decorations up on that bit. It's like no man's land. And I think if you rung up to complain, to say like, there's a bunch of teenagers throwing sofas out the window of this pub, to Haringey, they'd be like, oh, it's Islington. If you ring out Islington, they'd be like, oh, it's Haringey. So it was just lawless. And we only knew this in hindsight when I started working in other pubs and dealt with licensing laws. At the time, we was just like, it was as close to a squat as you could get. But we was just tapped into great music, and which we knew was good at the time, but a lot of which is now, like, we got old posters where it's got Bastille, Mumford & Sons, the Noisettes, like all on one day, which was just like a pretty standard Sunday there. And at the time, they were all new bands. It was, and I don't think the venue can take full responsibility for that, because London was there was a lot of good music most London venues of that size probably had those bands playing, because there was a lot of good bands playing and a lot of, wanting to do a lot of shows. So it was magic. Looking back, it was, it was a brilliant time. Yeah. And it was very community based, but we wasn't doing it because it was like, let's do something for the community. It was like, let's have a good time. That was the main mission.
Was there anybody back then that played in Nambuca that blew up that you were surprised by?
That I was surprised by? No, I think like most of when you saw, as much as we saw a lot of good music, I think when you saw like the stuff that was really great. I mean, like Frank, from the get go, it was just like it was, his songs were just so exciting, and they were so sort of embedded into the sort of foundations of Nambuca, because he was there at the start, and as it grew, it sort of like, as he grew, the pub grew with him. But I think like Florence and the Machine, for example, I remember seeing the PA wasn't even turned on, just stamping her foot. And I knew her anyway. I knew her as a friend, but I'd never seen her sing. And she was just like stamping her foot after the PA had been set off and singing in the corner. And I was just like, motherfucker, this is like, she is a superstar. Just hearing the first 4 bars of the song, I was like, there's everything about her says she should be, like a world-renowned superstar. She's up there with the greats. And then, off she went up there with the greats. And it was such a beautiful thing to see, like, and kind of call it. So, I mean, I wonder if there's, no, I don't think, I mean, even if someone that I didn't like did well, I don't think I'd ever sort of be like, oh, I'm surprised that worked for him. The other way around a lot, I was surprised that there was some acts that I saw which didn't, like completely blow up and, and be huge superstars. But there was a lot of good people, a lot of good music.
What were some of the lessons you learned? Because you said like you take it from like a business perspective now, and that aspect of it. Like, what are some of the lessons you learned along the way? Because I mean, right now we're at the point where like I'm helping Ian book like house show gigs, and we're traveling around and doing stuff. Like, what kind of advice do you have for somebody who is in a scene like that and is on the path up, I guess?
I think like because I've always sort of I've sort of seen it from two ways really, which is one, me trying to sort of like book other people's shows in and try and create something. And then there's sort of like what I do with my own music. And I think like I try now, I mean, I'm lucky enough I have a brilliant booking agent these days, so I don't have to worry too much about it. But I do think when people ask why, I really think concentrating on the songs is the most important thing. I really think that if the song like get rather than getting too bogged down in trying to get the right gig or trying to get the sort of, the content correct or whatever. I'd like to think, ever the optimist, I like to think that if you get the song right, the other things should fall into place, or at least, I mean, certainly, again, I was in a very lucky position with Beans on Toast, but my general rule of thumb before I started working with Adam, my booking agent, was like, let one gig lead to another. I would just go and do a gig and generally someone would be like, hey man, that was really good. I run this bar, blah, 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 blah. I play in this band. Do you want this? And and constantly saying yes. I mean, that's one piece of advice I'd definitely give, just say yes to stuff. But yeah, apart from that, I'd love to believe that, like the right song comes out, it captures the hearts and minds of people. And then, like the rest of it should fall into place correctly. I understand it's not always that easy, but it's a nice idea.
So let's talk about the songwriting process for you for a minute. So when I first saw you, I know that you were solo, but I also know you have the Beans on Toast band. So for this new record you just put out, do you think their songwriting is more collaborative, or do you think it's still predominantly just you writing out the songs?
I mean, I write all the songs, and then so for each of I got just about to release my 17th album. And for each album, I've used pretty much the same process, which is I'll sit exactly where I am now, actually, and write the songs, and there'll be 3-chord folk songs, and then I will approach different people to produce and or play on the record. And certainly, more recently, the technique I've been doing is approaching people that are sort of like bands and producers. So the last record was a record, The Toothpaste and the Tube. And there's a wicked act called Ferris and Sylvester, who are like a husband and wife sort of blues duo. And they've got a studio and they're friends. I knew they had a studio. I really like some of the work they've done. So I basically turned up to them. I sent, I always like to leave it so it's kind of off the cuff. So like I tell them what I want to do, book the studio in. Like a week out, I'll send the demos of the song so that then no one overthinks it too much. I mean, I also quite like going in completely blind, and because the songs are so simple. If I work with good musicians, I can literally just go. And now my real trick is to kind of because I've got so many songs, so many records that do sound like people playing along with me playing on guitar. Now I just try and hand over the keys to the car a little bit, and it's just like, look, if this was your song and it didn't have, I find that if you take my guitar out of it, then people can put a lot of their style and energy into it. And that bit comes quite collaborative because it's just like, basically, how would you make this song sound? But the minute I sing on top of it, it always sounds like a Beans on Toast song. I mean, I tried to make like almost like a dance record, and we programmed all these beats, did this whole thing, and it was just like sung on top of it, put it out. People didn't even notice. Everyone was like, yeah, cool, good tune. They hadn't noticed the fact that we sort of like thought we was doing this like electronica album. It was ultimately just another Beans on Toast record. I mean, my next album coming out in December is just piano and vocals. So again, I wrote the songs on guitar, and Matt, the piano player that I've been working with for years now, and is a dear friend and a fantastic pianist. We basically just worked it up like that. So, like I just again took the guitar out. He took the chord structure, but then like had free reign to do whatever else he wants with, almost down a kind of classical route, and we've done it like that. So yeah, it's a case of me writing a simple song and then putting it through someone else's musical mind in order to get an album at the end of it.
Really cool as like an approach to things. But there really is kind of just like that. And going back to your EDM thing, there really is just that Beans sound, for lack of a better word. How do you see that sound like it? Because I mean, you're the genesis of it. What do you hear in your own music that maybe Ian and I wouldn't pick up on, like influence or things like that?
I don't know. It's the only way I know how to do it. Like, so I try not to overthink it, really. I'm a real, like, as far as when you talk about like the process, I'm a real kind of I have a lot of traditions around it. It's real sort of like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I still write in the same blue notepads. I sit in the same, like I do the same thing as I did when I wrote my first songs, basically, certainly as the Beans on Toast thing. So, I mean, like when it comes to inspiration, I actually find, I think I probably draw more inspiration from sort of living my life than I do the music that I listen to, if you know what I mean. And I think it's more, I think really you know, what people come to from my music is the lyrical content rather than the sort of the G chord. But so it's like the inspiration is more drawn from the people that I meet and the places that I go. And the great thing about it, what makes it a kind of circular economy, is the more songs I put out, the more interesting places they take me, and the more people that I meet on, through the back of the songs. So that sort of like just means it sort of passes its way up.
With a specific song that I'm thinking of, just based off what you just said now, I'm thinking back to The Great American Novel. And I was just really impressed by the way that it was kind of like a road movie that you could hear with the little sound elements that were put in, like, I'm not sure what you did to do the casino sounds, but then there's also like the washboard stuff and the horns that come in and like that. I was just really impressed by the arranging of that one in particular.
Okay, well, that song that was written, it's a true story that about this massive tour that me and Bobby Banjo did around the States, written kind of as we were going, and then I recorded it in Lawrence, Kansas, with a band called Truck Stop Honeymoon. Met them at a UK festival, loved what they did, and they were just like, "Well, if you ever want to come to Kansas and make a record, come on over. We've got a studio in our house," and just invited us. We went pretty much straight away. I was like, "Let's go." And Mike West, the producer, he was just like hooked up in Lawrence. So he was just like, whatever musicians you need, they're only a phone call away, and they'll all come down for $50 and play on your record, basically. So when it was like, well, we've got a song that mentions trumpets and washboards and all this, so it's just like, we just called up everybody. He just wrote a list of all the instruments that we check in. And, so he's a great banjo player anyway. So sometimes that can be a really corny thing, isn't it? Like if you say he loved playing guitar and it's like, but it's like on that song, there were so many musical references. It was like, let's just fucking embrace it, because it's a long song as well. And like, there's a lot going on lyrically. So it's just like, let's just have, every time you mention an instrument, let's give it a go. I didn't even know we put casino sounds in it, but, while we were, I could imagine that we did while we was on that sort of flow. Yeah.
I think my favorite moment was last year when I came back for the later Sister Lost Seasons. I watched you and your pianist play "Send Me a Bird," and that's still my favorite song from you by far. Like every time I hear it, I fucking cry.
Yeah, it's been quite a mad song. I kind of like, I had an inkling, you kind of know when you're sort of proud of something, and that song, it fell down in one. It was Halloween actually, which, so perhaps the veil was, a bit thinner between the worlds or whatever. But initially I just wrote it in one. I had the idea because of something that had happened that day, and then just sat down, wrote the song start to finish, which is always a good sign. Once I recorded it, I started playing it live, and realized that it was going to, open up some conversations, should we say. And it's been, really, really beautiful song to have been playing and touring, and very kind of, a very emotional song, more so than any other song before. I've got more emails and more touch. I mean, like, for example, when I used to play MD Amazing, it'd lead to all these great conversations about people talking about drugs, like, and hey man, like and people giving me all their drugs and like hanging out at gigs and wanting to talk about share drugs, it was like MDMA all the way. And it was like, and then I had a song Magic about giving birth. And that was another song which really seemed to connect with people. And it was just like, all of a sudden, no one wanted to give me any MDMA, but everybody wanted to talk about their birth story and how similar it was. Oh my God, we went through exactly the same thing, and blah, blah, and our daughter was born, really. And that was like, again, quite especially a lot of people when they just come out. I know you get quite gushy after having a kid. So people would come up a lot or email in, and again, really beautiful thing. And then same with Send Me a Bird, but people were sharing their grief with you. basically, you know, and talking to you very, one of the best things about being a songwriter is people feel like they know you and they can talk really openly to you. And to a certain extent, they do, you know, because I'm willing to put myself out there so that people can feel like they know me. And I really like that. But people will open up to you very, very quickly. And so I spoke to a lot of people about their grief in since releasing that song last year. And it's, I mean, it's been a kind of beautiful thing. I don't want to, it's obviously not a great thing because this is surrounded by sort of like other people's tragedy, but very emotional thing to be part of. At the same time, for that, I am sort of proud of it. And I mean, there's also so many people have explained about the birds that they've seen and the relatives or friends that they relate to them. That, but not why my favorite thing. No one then goes, so what does that mean? You know, like, does that mean you believe in reincarnation? Or for some reason, people are happy to say like, I saw Granddad. He was a pigeon that landed on the bonnet of my car when I was driving home from the funeral. End of story. I'm happy that with that as a message from Granddad, it doesn't mean I want to talk about reincarnation or anything like that. It's just like, I'll take that message as it comes, bang. And then they'll sort of like, and that's what they'll tell me about it. But if I collated all of these messages, then maybe some deeper scientific investigation needs to go on.
Now, you've got some US dates coming up here soon.
And you'll be on tour with Jeshua and Marshall, right?
Jeshua Marshall. Do you want me to reel off the dates for you? I've got them here. Here we go. I'm playing in England. I'm doing a show in Brighton on the Tuesday, showing Camden on Wednesday, and then Portland on Thursday. How does that work? I'm literally going to have to, I'm going to have to leave the London gig, get straight on a plane, get straight off the plane, and then go to Portland. But then we're going Portland, Seattle, Bend, Grants Pass, Reno, Santa Cruz, LA, Crestline, Phoenix, Pueblo, Fort Collins, Nashville, Atlanta, Richmond, New York, Boston, and Boston again. And maybe some others that I forgot to put on my calendar, but they're the dates. Boom shakalaka. Yes, with Jeshua Marshall from Larry and His Flask. I knew him from the Larry and His Flask days. We did like a split single on Extra Mile way back when. And then we met on one of the Flogging Molly cruises some time ago. And then last year we did a couple of shows together. He came and opened in LA and New York last year and just got up on, you know, he's such a great player. Matt was there on piano as well. And it was just really natural. And he just got up and played a bit and his guitarist was there. We had this like wicked jam one night. And we just sort of said, he was like, if you ever want to do some more stuff. He also said, you know, I've got a van. It's pretty difficult for me touring in the States. The last tours that I've done, they'll be around either Lost Evenings or Flogging Molly Cruise. And I'll do like 5 dates. And I just have to fly everywhere. And it's like, you know, it's not environmentally sound. And it's like, well, it's a lot of queuing basically. And then like, so when Jeshua was like, I got a van, happy to, you know, like do some driving and do a proper road trip. So yeah, Adam booked some shows, his team booked some shows. We managed to plan out this tour right through the heart of America. It feels like, you know, we're literally going coast to coast in what I can only say is a fascinating time for your fine country as well. Excited to see it up close during all the election stuff. I mean, I was out there for the lead up to the last time that Trump won. Like, I remember being in a bar in Chicago watching like a Hillary and Trump debate, and it was like a fucking baseball game or something, you know, with people like cheering or it wasn't even like a baseball game. It was like a pantomime, which is probably a good way of describing it anyway. But so I'm excited. I think it's a fascinating time I've always loved America and I think it's a fascinating time to be there. I can't wait to see it up close, basically.
We had had a debate last night with Trump and Kamala Harris, and the shit that this dude was spouting out of his mouth about.
Oh, well, I see it here, man. I'm on the, you know, that the whole world is watching.
I'm just saying, if he gets back in office, I'm moving in with you if you're okay.
Yeah. Come on over. We do a house swap. Not that I want him in office, but I would have. Rather than what you want to happen, what do you think is going to happen?
I think Kamala's going to get in, but I do fear.
Good.
I fear just the backlash of all of his supporters, well, his cult, that is. I don't know
Right,
how they're
yeah.
gonna react because January 6th, they storm the Capitol, so she wins. And also around this time is gonna be his sentencing as well. Because he just got convicted. He just was found guilty. So I just wonder in November what is actually gonna happen in the US. How what's gonna burn down
So
or
whichever way you slice it, shit's gonna hit the fan.
yeah, I pretty much.
So, Ian, at Lost Evenings, we just have to find friends that are willing to marry us so we can get our green card and move over there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
That's the
Canada.
plan. That's the plan.
Run.
Oh no! We want to move. We want to move where you are. We want to get as far away as possible if it goes sideways.
I
No
mean,
shooting between.
we've got our own issues over here in the UK. I think it's the world that needs peace and love, doesn't it? Not just not just America.
Now, all that said, let's have some fun. Let's go to our mini games.
Fun would be good.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Pass, motherfucker. And we got some quick fire questions for you. And one I have for you, the first one I have for you is, what American foods do you need to have when you come over here?
I actually quite like Cracker Barrel, but you can get some, some pretty decent, some pretty fresh food on the road there. What else do I like?
I can never get Ian to go to Cracker Barrel, A, because of the name, B, because of the environment. But man, do I love their sausage gravy. Their sausage gravy is so good.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, it's been years since I've been, but the tour that we talked about on A Great American Novel, that was like, we didn't realize the connotations that it held, I guess. But it was the food, I'm actually vegetarian now, but at the time they used to wicked rainbow trout at Cracker Barrel for that tour. And it was like, when it was that or some service station that just only sold sugar, it was Cracker Barrel all the way, basically. But hang on, I'll tell you at the end of the tour, I guess. Oh, I also like Trader Joe's. I think they got some good snacks and some good vibes going on in there. Especially like their crispy chili oil that I'll probably be sneaking
good.
back in. I'll sell all my merch and return with crispy chili oil.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't include one of these questions. I typically do, but you specifically mentioned karaoke in a song. If we were all at a karaoke bar, what song would you get up and sing?
King of the Road.
Roger Miller. Okay, nice.
That was quick fire.
What are your musical guilty pleasures if you haven't?
If it's a pleasure, you shouldn't feel guilty. I wouldn't feel guilty about listening to music was my answer.
What would be your Mount Rushmore of places to play in the U.S.?
Top 4. Fillmore, San Francisco. Probably like actually 2 in San Francisco. Probably Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Festival as well. I've played the Fillmore in San Francisco, but I'd like to play it again, basically. I opened for Frank there as well. I mean, might as well go big, eh? Madison Square Garden. Not that I've ever been to a show there, but I guess that'd be an awesome place to play. And what's the big one in LA? The Griffith Observatory. Play good gigs there? Yeah, Adele did one, didn't she? Me and Adele. There you go. Pretty
There you go.
standard stuff. But also, I mean, there's like, I'm also pretty happy with the venues that I do play. I really like Drum, the venue where we're back at in New York. I played there last year, and it's like a kind of, I guess it's like a world music venue. We finished the gig, and they all these other musicians came in, and there was like a Turkish band with like 7 instruments that couldn't name one of the instruments. And they were like master players, and all these really well-dressed people turned up and stood in silence while these people played this almost like, it was like snake charming music. And it was so beautiful. And it was just like me and my mates like smashed at the back, just absorbing it, just being like so New York, they just sort of like, and the fact that we was on it before this sort of like deadly serious concert, we thought it was all like late night and whatnot. And we're just the prelude. But so Drum in New York, which I am playing, so I'm happy to be playing there again. That's not a quick fire answer though, is it?
It works for us.
Yeah.
We're pretty laid back. All right. So, funny or not, if Ian ever opens for you and he gets on a chair, can he introduce himself as Black Beans on Toast?
I mean, that's up to him. That's up to him, not up to me. I mean, but if you're
at least
going to
Ian
do
thought
it,
it was funny. That's all that mattered.
You should, if you're gonna do it, you should definitely wear the hat and the whole outfit. A friend of mine dressed years ago at Nambuca. A friend of mine, we had a fancy dress party, and someone dressed as me, my friend, and they actually borrowed all my clothes without me knowing about it, and just sort of wandered around the party, and it was a bloody weird thing. So sort of sometimes he actually had a photo of my mum and dad, and they had it on their mantelpiece for a couple of years. But I'd look across the room and be like, "That's me." No, that's not me. That's Dan dressed as me. But, I mean, there I also heard rumors one year at Glastonbury that there was like a tribute act calling himself Cheese on Toast, going around like all the sort of like little low-key, sort of shisha tents and little hippie cafes singing my songs, calling himself Cheese on Toast. But I went searching for him, but I never tracked him down. I don't know what I would have done if I would have found him.
Well, in return, I'll dress up as you, but you have to be White Guy Fawkes.
I'd probably get him more shit for that. But let's book the gig and then we'll see how we feel.
Who would you love to tour with next? Who's on your bucket list?
I mean, there's like Todd Snyder. He's kind of like my songwriting hero, huge inspiration, especially behind the books and stuff like that. But yeah, or any of that. Like it's weird because within the kind of like the sort of UK world, and obviously the kind, most of my favorite musicians of the sort of have come around at similar times to me. I sort of like I've seen them loads. I know I've played with them, played with a bunch of them. But I'm really into that kind of like Tyler Childers, Hayes Carl, Todd Snyder, that kind of sort of new outlaw country American thing. That's probably what I listen to the most. A couple of acts I have when they come to the UK, they play quite smaller venues. So I opened for Turnpike Troubadours, who I love. I opened for them in London, and Hayes Carl, I opened for him in London. But I'd love to be in the States with one of those acts. I mean, Tyler Childers, that'd be incredible. Yeah, it's something like that. One of them kind of guys. Or Bella White as well. I love her, like being incredible. Or if we're going people that have now passed, Justin Townsend, who I only got into his music after he passed away, and he's like now holds a special place in my heart. And he's just released like a sort of rarities and demos, and that's what I've been listening to all week.
So this is one that we tend to ask anybody that we talk to from the UK. What are your favorite shitty American beers? Because every time we've drank with anybody from over there, it's always been in that range has been the drinks of choice. So do you have a favorite shitty American beer?
I mean, Miller Lite. I know everybody, was it PBR? Everybody loves that one, isn't it? But like, I'd probably take a Miller Lite or a Coors Light. But I mean, they're pretty good on the local beers around the states. Hey, the kind of craft beer revolution and all that. So generally with beer, I'll have what I'm given, which is mostly PBR.
That's always been my go-to, honestly. Have you had hams?
To be honest, I find American beer is just a bit watery. Like it's just like I got a weak bladder, man. Like that shit. PBRs I reckon I'm still yet to do the experiment, but I reckon I could drink 2 cans of PBR and piss free. And you're gonna have to work out how that happens yourself.
Ian, I don't think we can come up with another quick fire question after that answer. Drink 2, piss 3. That's going in the record book.
That's perfect.
Well, Beans, you told us your dates that you have coming up that you're doing over here and over there. What else is on the docket? You mentioned your album coming out in December.
Yeah, album's out in December. Pre-orders will come out for that probably by the time this podcast goes live, actually. So, and there's a bunch of music coming out in the lead up to the record. And then, yeah, it's like come straight back from the States, big UK tour, then out to Australia in January, back for another UK tour after that. And then that'll just sort of like merge into next year's festival season, and then just do it all again.
Well, it's been a lot of fun to have you on here, Beans. We truly appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, letting me waffle away. And I hope to see you both at some point on the tour.
This show is the brainchild of Black Guy Fawkes folk punk griot. You can find him on all the social medias as Black Guy Fawkes or Black Guy Fawkes Music, as well as on Bandcamp. Merch, music, and ticket sales are how independent music gets sustained, but word of mouth also helps a great deal. The intro and outro are both from the song New American Meltdown by Black Guy Fawkes, so that's legally covered because this is his podcast, and that is his song available on the album Life, Love, and the Bomb. Additional music elements provided by Ben Dumb Production Music. Check out more at bdmusicproduction.com for all your bespoke, royalty-free background music needs. Sound design and editing by Ed Coulard, who appears courtesy of his dog and many, many cats. Cover art by Jacob Matthews, a pal who has been down since day one. Finally, while Fawkes and Friends firmly believes that punk rock is and should be a safe space, we know it can't be safe for everyone without excluding bad elements. So remember,
So tell your local Nazis and your fascists to fuck off.
I can see him connected to audio. There we go. Yeah, we lost you for a bit.
Yeah, but the screenshot when it died, Ian, you were pulling just the sweetest face. I took a screenshot of you frozen like this.
Oh, please send that to us. We need to see that.